What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the huge start for Metroid Dread on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo came out and gave us some sales numbers for this game for the month of October in the United States only with the NPD sales. We also got some sales on the Nintendo Switch when it comes to how that system did in October. The Nintendo Switch OLED is tearing it up, and then we're also going to discuss what's going on with the 3 million for Metroid Dread, because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of people discussing things online on the internet, Twitter, other places about Metroid Dread sales, and it's pretty much following the curve that I thought it would. But I'll give you guys some more information in why I think this game, or at least how I predicted this game was going to do as well as it's doing, and how it's going to hit that 3 million plus units, being the best selling Metroid game of all time. And I think you'll get there in a year, so we'll go down and break down everything for you guys. But before we get into all that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go and get into the information here. The Verge had the beat on this when it comes to the NPD sales. So Nintendo did note that Metroid Dread, which did launch alongside the Nintendo Switch OLED on October 8th, sold 854,000 units in the US, making it the best start for any Metroid game ever, according to Doug Bowser. So that is very impressive. The best start for any Metroid game ever, which is exactly what I was saying based off of the sales trends that I was seeing on Amazon, that I was seeing on the pre-order numbers with GameStop, and also my own internal sales tracking with the few sources I had. I thought that this game was going to easily smoke any other Metroid game that we've seen so far, and that definitely seems to be the case here. Now, real quick with the Nintendo Switch OLED as well, the Nintendo Switch sold 711,000 units for the month of October, and 314,000 of those were the Nintendo Switch OLED. So very good as well there. Now Nintendo is still dealing with some issues when it comes to the production of the Nintendo Switch. So I think they were down year on year just a little bit, but still very impressive overall with the sales of the Nintendo Switch. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Metroid Dread, because this is going to be what everyone is going to be discussing with the sales of Metroid Dread. And I've seen a lot of, I would say, armchair analysts kind of come through and come at me when it comes to Metroid Dread sales numbers, and how, oh, well, if it doesn't sell this by this time, by the end of the year, then it's not going to sell 3 million, or I expected more for Metroid Dread. And it's like, you expected more for Metroid Dread to be more than breaking the series franchise sales record? I mean, how could you expect much more? We're not saying, at least I'm not saying, that Metroid Dread is going to sell 10 million units in a year. It's going to sell 3 million units in at least a year. And anybody who knows anything about sales, if you just simply look at the curve of any other Nintendo Switch game that has sold at least 3 million on the platform in a year's time, if you sell 50% of that in 25 days, it's pretty obvious that in a year's time that it's going to be more than 3 million. You can get that with any other Nintendo Switch game and the curve of sales. If you look at games like Fire Emblem Three Houses, or if you look at games like Paper Mario the Origami King, or if you look at games like Clubhouse Games, these are all titles that did less than what Metroid Dread is doing at this point, and went on to sell 3 million units. The Japanese sales for those franchises didn't overcome the huge start, or haven't overcome, or at least didn't at the time, what Metroid Dread did. And I think that the difference with Metroid Dread is that if you look at the residual sales, so let's talk about the long term, it's still charting high on different platforms. It doesn't need to be the best seller of all time going forward on every single month. It doesn't. It just needs to rack up a number of thousands of sales every single week, which it will. The reason why it will is because of how quality the game is. The word of mouth of Dread between hardcore gamers and new gamers getting the system. That's why you want a large install base. If Metroid Dread launched on the Wii U, it wouldn't be doing anywhere near as good. It wouldn't get to that 3 million, or would struggle heavily to get there when it comes to it, and definitely not in 1 year. But since the Nintendo Switch is doing so well and the OLED is doing so well, it'll pick up those sales. Also, Nintendo had a little bit of a fail-safe plan built in with the demo. So when people see, oh, Metroid Dread is still in the top 10 on the eShop charts, I think it's in the top 5 on the eShop charts, it says demo available, they can click on that. When they see maybe the Game Awards coming up and Metroid Dread is nominated for that, they're like, okay, there's a demo in there, I can check it out. When they see the Nintendo Switch OLED, the trailers or the reviews, people are always going to mention Metroid Dread since it launched with that trailer. There's so many residual things built in for Metroid Dread to continue selling better on a curve than any other 3 million unit seller on the Nintendo Switch in 1 year. So we're talking games that are right around that. Like I said, Clubhouse games, Paper Mario the Origami King, Fire Emblem Three Houses. None of those games had what Dread has going for it, with the demo, with the trailer, with the Nintendo Switch OLED, and of course, with the quality of the game. With the exception of Fire Emblem Three Houses, they both have around the same Metacritic. But Metroid Dread is far more marketable, and I think is going to do better based off of what we're seeing here, because the debut sales here in the US by itself, this 854,000, I definitely think is better than what Fire Emblem Three Houses debuted at when it was here in the US, and the Japanese sales didn't quite cover for that. So it seems like Metroid Dread, by all accounts at this point, is definitely going to do over 3 million based on my own sales tracking from previous games, and also based on the curve of what we're seeing now at this point. Now remember, this is just for October. We're already in November at this point, and if you look at the sales numbers when it comes to Metroid Dread before the holidays for Nintendo are massive. They're usually very good. You'll see games get crazy amounts of spikes all over the place. This is November and this is December. I think that Metroid Dread has the advantage of no Zelda and no Mario outside of Mario Party Superstars, right? It has the advantage of that. It has Pokemon there, but they're the Diamond and Pearl remakes. It has Shin Megami Tensei, which is doing well, which we'll talk about in a separate video, but that's also a different type of game. So Metroid Dread is one of the de facto hardcore holiday titles for this year. It's going to be underneath a lot of Christmas trees this year. It's going to be gifted to a lot of people. It could easily tack on in the US alone. This is just me, more just estimates, but it could easily tack on another 300,000 to 400,000 units in the US alone for November and also for December with the holidays. If you look at that, the US alone, that would put it at 1.5 million by itself, not including Japan, Europe, and the rest of the world. Now let's talk about that, because I think that's also interesting as well. If you include Japan and you include Europe, the debut sales in the month of October are probably 1.5 million plus. And this is going off of using the Famitsu sales charts. That game is already over 100, I think it's about 120,000 units plus in Japan. It's still in the top 20 sales in Japan as well. Easily the best debut for a Metroid game. If you look at Europe, there's not as easy sales tracking there, but from what I understand, if you look at Spain and if you look at some of the other territories, not just the UK, Metroid Dread is still a top unit seller on the Nintendo Switch there as well. Once again, to sell over 3 million in 1 year, you do not need to be the top sales charts each time. All you need to do is continue being in the sales charts and being in the discussion, like we're seeing on Amazon here in the US. Metroid Dread is still a top 10 seller, like we're seeing in Japan, still a top 20 seller. So that's why I think it's weird with some of these different analysis that I'm seeing, how Metroid Dread has fallen off, or how it's not doing as well, or how it's not going to do well in the future. It's like, it's doing better than what other games did on the Nintendo Switch after its debut. It debuted better than other games that sold 3 million in 1 year, and it's continued to have better residual sales than other games on the Nintendo Switch that sold 3 million in 1 year, and that's before the holiday season. So why wouldn't I put it at 3 million before the 1 year if it's doing better than all the other games, reviewed just as good or better, has a demo for people to play, and like I said, before the holidays this year, before November and December, it seems like it's easily on track to sell over 3 million. Metroid is the type of game that people are going to pick up. People are just going to pick it up. It doesn't need to be Super Mario Party, you know, selling 18 million. It doesn't need to be Splatoon, or it doesn't need to be Mario 3D World, or it doesn't need to be, you know, Super Mario Odyssey or Smash Brothers. It's not going to be that, and it doesn't need to be that. And the sales here so far point to it being exactly where I said it was going to be, breaking franchise sales records by a large margin, doing extremely well, better than what a lot of people thought it was going to do, using the Nintendo Switch OLED to boost up sales higher than any other previous franchise, and continue to be in the sales charts. Like I stated here, on Amazon, still in the top sales charts, and once again in Japan, still in the top sales charts as well. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm very happy to see that Metroid Dread has done well and is breaking franchise sales records, and it's going to continue to do extremely well. So we could see, if we're going to put it like an estimate, by the end of the year, I think after the November and December, we could see that the game probably sold maybe even like 2-point-something million. Once the December's done, the holidays are completely done, because I think it's going to get quite a number of sales, especially here in the US. I think that demo is going to help out. And I think even into next year, I think things are looking very good for Metroid Dread. But those are my thoughts on it, guys. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.